In 1615, deep in the mountains of feudal Japan, a master asked his student a question that would change his destiny. "Takeshi, if you fight in a storm, how do you keep the rain from distracting you?" The young prodigy answered with arrogance, "I will move so fast, master, that I cut the drops before they touch me." The old man shook his head. Crack! His bamboo cane struck the boy's shoulder before he could even blink. "Wrong. You are dead. Because the moment you focus on the rain, you have already lost the duel." This is the paradox every warrior had to solve. The more you try to control the chaos, the more the chaos controls you. True power does not come from resisting the storm, it comes from becoming the eye of it. The samurai who understood this ruled the battlefield. Those who didn't became memories. But this isn't just about swords. Right now, you are fighting the exact same battle. You are standing in a storm of 10,000 distractions. You are trying to parry every email, dodge every notification, and outrun every anxiety about your future. You are everywhere except here. And just like the young samurai, you are exhausted because you are trying to cut the raindrops. Today, we stop fighting the weather. We are going to deconstruct the forbidden technique of Mushin, the state of no mind. It is the only way to silence the noise and reclaim your power. Are you ready to stop getting wet? Chapter 1. The Awakening. The Burden of the Brilliant Mind. The year is 1615. The air in the Haida Mountains smells of pine needles and cold rain. Inside the dojo, the silence is so heavy it feels like a weight on your chest. Takeshi was 17 years old, and he was, by every definition, a prodigy. While other students struggled to memorize the basic stances, Takeshi had mastered the entire Koryu curriculum in 3 years. He could recite the art of war backward. He knew the precise angle for a perfect cut 45 degrees. He knew the exact weight of his blade to the gram. He was an encyclopedia of violence. Technically, he was flawless. His posture was perfect. His grip was textbook. If you watched him train against the air, you would think he was a god of war. But Takeshi had a secret. A sickness that no amount of study could cure. He couldn't fight. It happened every time he faced a live opponent. The moment another human being stood across from him, holding a wooden bokken, Takeshi's greatest asset, his sharp mind, became his greatest enemy. Let's watch him. It is a Tuesday afternoon sparring session. Takeshi is facing Jiro, a massive student with terrible form, but the strength of a bear. Takeshi steps onto the floor. His eyes scan Jiro. His brain instantly begins to calculate. Jiro's left foot is turned inward. His balance is off. He's gripping the sword too tight, which means his wrists are locked. He's going to swing wide from the right. I should duck, step 30 degrees to the left, and strike his ribs. It was a perfect plan, a brilliant analysis. But while Takeshi was busy narrating the fight in his head, Jiro simply moved. Crack. Before Takeshi could finish his thought, Jiro's wooden sword slammed into his helmet. Takeshi stumbled back, ears ringing, the perfect plan crumbling into dust. Dead, the instructor barked. Again, Takeshi shook it off. Focus, he told himself. I just need to think faster. They reset. Takeshi's mind spun up again like a clockwork engine. Okay, he hit me high last time. He thinks I'm afraid of the headshot now. He'll feint high and go low. I need to watch his knees. If the knees drop, I jump. Jiro stepped forward. Takeshi's eyes locked onto Jiro's knees. He was analyzing. He was processing. Thwack. Jiro didn't faint. He just hit him in the head again. A clumsy, telegraphed, stupid overhand strike that any novice should have blocked. But Takeshi didn't block it. He was too busy waiting for the feint that never came. Laughter rippled through the dojo. It wasn't cruel laughter, which made it worse. It was pity. Takeshi is a library, one student whispered. Full of knowledge but made of paper. That night, the shame was a physical thing. It sat in Takeshi's gut like a stone. He sat in the corner of the dojo long after the candles had burned low. The master, Yamamoto-sensei, was sweeping the tatami mats in the dark. For 20 minutes, the only sound was the shh of the broom. Finally, Takeshi spoke. His voice was tight, on the edge of breaking. Sensei, I know more technique than Jiro. I practice twice as hard. I understand the mechanics better than anyone here. Why do I lose to a brute who doesn't even know the names of the strikes he uses? The master didn't stop sweeping. Shh. You lose, the master said softly, because you are too smart. Takeshi blinked. Too smart? How can a warrior be too smart? The master stopped. He leaned on his broom and looked at the young man. Jiro is empty. When he sees an opening, he strikes. There is no gap between the seeing and the doing. But you are full. You are full of theories, full of strategies, full of what-ifs. When you fight, you are having a debate with yourself. And while you are debating, Jiro is killing you. The master walked over and tapped Takeshi's forehead. This is a wonderful tool for planning a harvest or building a castle. But in battle, it is a slow, clumsy, bureaucratic clerk. It files paperwork while the enemy is drawing steel. This is the trap of intelligence. And here is the uncomfortable truth. You know exactly what Takeshi feels like. You are smart. You are capable. You have read the books. You have watched the tutorials. You know exactly what you need to do to fix your life. You know how to start that business. You know how to fix your relationship. You know how to get in shape. But when the moment comes to act, when you need to film the video, or make the sales call, or have the difficult conversation, you freeze. Why? Because your intelligence has turned against you. Your brain starts running simulations. What if I say the wrong thing? What if the audio quality is bad? What if they reject me? What if I succeed and then I can't handle the pressure? What if? You aren't fighting the problem in front of you. You are fighting 1,000 imaginary futures that haven't happened yet. Neuroscientists call this analysis paralysis, but the samurai had a better name for it. Shoshin blockade. The mind stops. It latches onto a detail, a fear, a plan, an expectation, and the flow of reality leaves it behind. Think about the last time you tried to fall asleep before a big day. You lay in bed and you tried to sleep. You calculated how many hours you would get if you fell asleep right now. You worried about being tired. You adjusted the pillow. You thought about breathing techniques. And what happened? You stayed awake. But when you sit on the couch and watch a boring movie, not trying to sleep at all, you pass out in 5 minutes. Why? Because on the couch you weren't trying. You weren't thinking about sleep. You just were. Takeshi's problem was that he viewed his mind as a weapon he had to wield. He thought if he just sharpened the blade enough, if he just learned one more fact, one more counter, one more trick, he would finally be safe. He didn't realize that the blade wasn't dull. The blade was too heavy to lift. Sensei, Takeshi asked, desperate now. How do I fix it? Tell me the technique. I will learn it tonight. The master laughed. A dry, crackling sound. You see, you are doing it again. You want to learn a solution. You want to add more to the container. But the solution is not addition, Takeshi. It is subtraction. Yamamoto-sensei tossed the broom to Takeshi. You want to pass the test? You want to defeat Jiro? Fine. Takeshi stood up, gripping the broom, expecting a secret combat drill. Tomorrow morning, the master said, you will not touch your sword, you will not read the scrolls, you will not speak. Then what will I do? You will serve tea. You will sweep the floor. And you will learn to stop the clerk in your head from filing paperwork. Takeshi looked at the broom in his hand. He felt a surge of indignation. He was a scholar of the blade. He was destined for greatness. And the master wanted him to become a janitor? Trust me, the master whispered, his eyes disappearing into a smile that wasn't quite a smile. It will be the hardest fight of your life. Takeshi didn't know it yet, but the master was right. He was about to enter a battlefield where his intelligence, his logic, and his ego were useless. He was about to declare war on his own mind. Chapter 2. Shoshin, the Art of the Mundane. The sun rose over the Haida Mountains, painting the sky in bruises of purple and gold. But Takeshi didn't see it. He was too busy looking at a bucket of freezing water and a rag that smelled of mildew. Day 1, he muttered to himself. This is a test. It has to be. He scrubbed the floor of the dojo. Scrub, rinse, ring. Scrub, rinse, ring. His mind, that brilliant, analytical machine that could dismantle complex military strategies, was currently screaming, "This is an insult. I am the son of a magistrate. I can read 3 dialects. I can recite the lineage of the emperor. And here I am, wiping the sweat of other men off the wood." He looked up. Across the courtyard, the other students, including Jiro, the brute who had humiliated him, were swinging their swords. The sound of the bokken cutting the air was a taunt. Whoosh, whoosh, they were getting stronger, Takeshi was getting wet knees. He scrubbed harder, channeling his anger into the wood. If the master wanted a clean floor, he would give him the cleanest floor in Japan. He analyzed the grain of the wood. He calculated the optimal friction coefficient of the rag. He created a system to maximize surface area coverage per stroke. He was still doing it. He was still thinking the floor instead of cleaning it. By noon, his back ached. By sunset, his knees were raw. When he finally collapsed onto his futon, he waited for the master to come and congratulate him on passing the humility test. He waited for the secret sword technique that would be his reward. Yamamoto-sensei did not come. Day 2 was the same. Day 3 was worse. By the end of the first week, Takeshi's mind had turned into a torture chamber. This is what modern psychologists call a dopamine detox, but for Takeshi, it felt like rotting alive. His ego began to whisper dangerous things. The master is senile. He has forgotten you. You are wasting your prime years. You should leave. Go to the city. Find a teacher who appreciates your intellect. The boredom was physically painful. It felt like an itch inside his skull that he couldn't scratch. He was suffering from the addiction of the intelligent mind, the need for constant stimulation, constant progress, constant validation. Then came the morning of the 10th day. Takeshi was in the small kitchen hut, angrily preparing tea. He was slamming the kettle onto the iron hook, throwing the tea leaves into the pot. He was rushing. He wanted to get this over with so he could get back to, well, he didn't know what, but he wanted to get there fast. Suddenly, the door slid open. Yamamoto-sensei entered. Takeshi stiffened. "Master, the tea is almost ready." The master didn't speak. He walked over to the small preparation table and gestured for Takeshi to move aside. "Watch," the master whispered. Takeshi watched, expecting a lecture. Instead, he saw a performance. Yamamoto-sensei picked up the bamboo ladle. He didn't grab it. His hand seemed to flow around it. He dipped it into the water jar. The movement was slow, deliberate, and terrifyingly precise. He poured the water into the kettle. The sound wasn't a splash. It was a single clear note, like a bell. He whisked the tea. His wrist moved in a perfect rhythm. Chaka, chaka, chaka. He wasn't looking out the window. He wasn't checking the time. He wasn't thinking about the war in the north or the price of rice. His entire universe had shrunk to the size of the tea bowl. Takeshi realized with a jolt that the master looked more focused now, making tea in a dark kitchen, than Takeshi looked when he was fighting for his life. The master poured the green liquid into 2 cups. He set the ladle down without a sound. "Takeshi," the master said, holding out a cup, "where were you when you were making the tea?" Takeshi blinked. "I was here, master." "No, you were in the future. You were rushing to finish the tea so you could do the next thing. You treated the tea like an obstacle. You treated the moment like an enemy to be defeated." The master took a sip. "When you fight Jiro, you treat the present moment like an obstacle too. You want to get to the winning part. You rush through the fighting part. That is why you lose." Takeshi looked down at the steaming green liquid. "But master, it's just tea. It's just sweeping. It's boring." "It is boring because you are not in it," the master snapped. "You are floating above it, judging it. You think you are too big for this task. That is your arrogance. That is your expert mind." The master placed the cup down firmly. "In the Zen tradition, we call the antidote Shoshin, beginner's mind." "I know the word," Takeshi said defensively. "It means to be open to learning." "That is the definition for children," the master corrected. "The true meaning of Shoshin is emptiness. When a beginner picks up a sword, he does not know how to hold it. He has no bad habits. He has no theories. He is pure curiosity. He is pure attention. He is entirely here because he is terrified that if he looks away, he will drop it." The master pointed a calloused finger at Takeshi's chest. "You have become an expert. You think you know how to sweep. You think you know how to pour tea. So your mind goes to sleep. It goes on autopilot. And a samurai on autopilot is a corpse. Here is your new instruction," the master continued. "Treat the broom exactly as you would treat the katana. If you miss a spot of dust, imagine you have been cut. If you spill a drop of water, imagine you have bled. When you sweep, do not sweep to clean the floor. Sweep to sweep. When you pour tea, do not pour to fill the cup. Pour to pour. The goal is not the outcome. The goal is the action." The master left the room, leaving the door open to the cold morning air. Takeshi stood there for a long time. He looked at the ladle, he looked at the tea leaves. For the first time in his life, he didn't analyze. He didn't try to figure out the most efficient way to clean up. He picked up the ladle. He felt the weight of the bamboo. He felt the texture of the handle. He dipped it into the water. He watched the water flow. He listened to the sound. Splash. He spilled it. Damn it, he hissed, his mind instantly jumping to criticize. You clumsy idiot. He stopped. He took a breath. He acknowledged the thought, the voice of the angry clerk in his head, and he let it pass. He tried again. For the next 20 days, Takeshi waged a silent war in that kitchen and on that dojo floor. It was a war against the sticky mind. Every time he swept, his mind would try to jump away. It would think about dinner. It would think about a girl in the village. It would think about the sword. And every time, Takeshi had to physically drag his attention back to the bristles of the broom, back to the wood, back to the dust, back to the here. It was exhausting. It was harder than doing 1,000 push-ups. But slowly, imperceptibly, something began to shift. On the 30th day, Takeshi was sweeping the veranda. It was autumn now. Red maple leaves were falling onto the wood. He moved the broom. Swish. He watched the leaves tumble. He moved again. Swish. And for a split second, the world stopped. There was no Takeshi. There was no broom. There was no floor. There was only the sweeping. The separation between the doer and the deed dissolved. His mind went silent. No analysis, no judgment, no past, no future. Just the wind, the wood, the motion. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then a bird chirped and his mind rushed back in. Wow! Did you feel that? I did it. I achieved Mushin. And just like that, the moment was gone, ruined by his own excitement. But he had felt it. He had tasted the silence. He looked at his hands. They were calloused from the broom, not the sword. But they felt different. They felt awake. He didn't know it yet, but he had just rewired his brain. He had deactivated the default mode network. He had learned how to shut down the simulator and turn on the sensor. He was ready, not to fight, but to see. That evening, Yamamoto-sensei found him sitting on the clean veranda, watching the sunset. You swept well today, the master said. Thank you, sensei. Your mind was quiet. For a moment, yes. The master nodded. Good. You have learned to handle the broom. Now, we will see if you can handle the monster. The monster? Takeshi asked. Science, the master smiled. Or, as we call it, the architecture of fear. Takeshi stood up. The boredom was gone. The anxiety was gone. He was finally beginning to understand. The broom wasn't a punishment, it was the weapon. But he still had to learn why it worked. And for that, we must leave 1615 and travel 400 years into the future to look inside the human skull. Chapter 3. The Science of Silence. The Mechanics of the No Mind. Let's pause the movie. Let's freeze frame Takeshi sitting on that veranda, staring at the autumn leaves with a broom in his hand. To the naked eye, he looks like a bored teenager doing chores. But if we were to strap Takeshi into a modern fMRI machine right now, we would see something extraordinary happening inside his skull. We would see the physical architecture of his brain changing in real time. For centuries, Western historians dismissed stories like Takeshi's as myths. They thought the idea of no mind or mushin was just poetic nonsense, a religious metaphor for people who like to stare at walls. But in the last 20 years, modern neuroscience has finally caught up to the ancient dojos, and what they found is that Yamamoto-sensei wasn't teaching philosophy, he was teaching biology. To understand why Takeshi kept losing fights, and why sweeping the floor was the only way to fix it, we have to look at the villain living inside your head. Neuroscientists call it the DMN, the default mode network. This is a specific network of interacting brain regions that lights up when you are not doing anything specific. It is the autopilot of the brain, and its job is very specific. It constructs your sense of self. The DMN is the time traveler. It is the part of your brain that ruminates on what happened yesterday. Why did I say that stupid thing in the meeting? And simulates what might happen tomorrow. What if I lose my job? When Takeshi stood in the dojo facing Jiro, his DMN was firing like a Christmas tree. I am Takeshi, self-identity. I am the son of a magistrate. Ego, history. I cannot lose to this peasant. Future simulation, fear. This sounds useful, right? It separates us from animals. It lets us plan cities and write novels. But in a high-performance scenario, whether that's a sword fight, a sales pitch, or a first date, the DMN is a parasite. Here is the cold hard math of the nervous system. Conscious thought, DMN, processing, takes about 0.5 seconds to register. Subconscious reaction, reflex, takes about 0.02 seconds. That is a massive gap. In the world of combat, 0.5 seconds is an eternity. It is the difference between slipping a punch and waking up on the canvas. When Takeshi was analyzing Jiro, he was routing the visual data through his DMN. Eye sees Jiro move. Signal goes to prefrontal cortex. Brain asks, "What does this mean for me?" Brain decides, move left. Signal goes to muscles. That process takes half a second. But Jiro's sword only takes a quarter of a second to reach Takeshi's head. Takeshi was losing because he was operating on a delayed feed. He was watching a live stream of reality that was lagging by 500 milliseconds. This brings us to the golden rule of the samurai, which is also the golden rule of flow state science. You cannot be in the moment and in the self at the same time. The brain operates on a seesaw. When the DMN self, time travel, is active, the TPN task, positive network, is suppressed. The TPN is the network responsible for direct attention to the here and now. You can be in the past, future, DMN, or you can be in the now, TPN. You cannot be in both. So, what was the master doing with the broom? He was forcing Takeshi to manually override the switch. When the master said, sweep to sweep, he wasn't being poetic. He was giving a cognitive instruction, maximize sensory input to starve the DMN. The DMN feeds on low sensory environments. When you are bored or doing something automatic, like driving a familiar route, the DMN wakes up and starts worrying about your life. That's why you have your best ideas or your worst anxiety attacks in the shower. By forcing Takeshi to pay extreme, hyper-focused attention to the bristles of the broom and the grain of the wood, the master was forcing Takeshi's brain to route 100% of its energy into sensory processing. Feel the wood, hear the wind, see the dust. The brain has a limited amount of metabolic energy. If 100% of your bandwidth is focused on the sensory details of the now, there is zero energy left for the DMN to ask, am I a good samurai? The self disappears, the time traveler dies. And when the DMN shuts down, something magical happens. The prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, the part that doubts, judges, and hesitates, goes offline. Scientists call this transient hypofrontality. The samurai called it mushin. It's the state where the thinker vanishes and only the doer remains. This is why the broom was the ultimate weapon. You cannot force yourself into flow state during a sword fight. The stakes are too high. The fear triggers the amygdala, which triggers the DMN to start looking for escape routes. If you try to relax while a razor-sharp blade is swinging at your neck, you will panic. But a broom? A broom is safe. The stakes are zero. The master used the mundane, boring tasks to build a backdoor into Takeshi's nervous system. He was training Takeshi's brain to enter hypofrontality on command. He was building a neural pathway. Focus on detail is greater than shutdown ego, is greater than enter flow. He made Takeshi run this code thousands of times a day. Pour tea is greater than enter flow. Wash rice is greater than enter flow. Sweep floor is greater than enter flow. It was repetition training. Just like doing bicep curls builds the arm, mindful sweeping builds the ability to shut up the voice in your head. Takeshi didn't know about fMRIs. He didn't know about metabolic energy or neural pathways. All he knew was that the static in his head was getting quieter. He knew that when he walked, he wasn't walking to get somewhere. He was just walking. The delay was gone. The lag was gone. He was no longer watching the live stream of his life. He was the camera. Back in 1615, autumn turned to winter. The first snows fell on the Haida Mountains. Takeshi stood in the courtyard. He caught a snowflake on his finger. In the past, he would have thought, it's cold, I need a coat. Snow means winter is here. Winter means war might stop. I wonder if my father is warm. Today, he just felt the cold. Sensation, melting, water, pure data, no narrative. The door to the dojo slid open. Yamamoto-sensei stepped out, his breath pluming in the icy air. He held a wooden bokken in his hand. He didn't look at Takeshi like a teacher looking at a student. He looked at him like a wolf looking at another wolf. "Takeshi," the master said softly, "get your sword." Takeshi felt a flicker of the old fear, the DMN trying to boot up. "The test, this is it, don't fail." But Takeshi recognized the feeling now. He saw the time traveler trying to enter the room, and he gently, firmly closed the door in its face. He didn't answer. He didn't posture. He walked to the rack. He picked up his wooden sword. The weight felt different now. It wasn't a tool for glory. It wasn't a heavy object. It was just an extension of his arm. He turned to face the master. He didn't enter a stance. He didn't calculate the distance. He didn't plan his strike. He just breathed. The science of silence was over. The experiment was complete. Now, it was time for the practical application. The master raised his sword. "Come," Yamamoto whispered. "Let us see if you are still trying to cut the rain." Chapter 4, The First Transformation, The Ghost in the Snow. Yamamoto-sensei held his gaze for a long, terrifying second. Then, slowly, he lowered his bokken. "No," the master said, the steam of his breath swirling in the cold air. "If I fight you, you will lose out of respect. You will hesitate because I am your teacher, and hesitation is not mushin." The master turned his head toward the line of shivering students watching from the veranda. "Jiro, step forward." A ripple of tension went through the courtyard. Jiro stepped down onto the packed snow. He was the same brute who had humiliated Takeshi months ago, the one who fought with the grace of a falling boulder but the power of an ox. Jiro grinned. He cracked his neck. To him, this was a joke. He had beaten Takeshi a dozen times. He saw the same skinny boy who overthought every move. He saw a scholar, not a killer. "Don't worry, sensei," Jiro said, slapping his heavy wooden sword into his palm. "I'll go easy on him. I don't want to break the janitor." The old Takeshi would have burned with shame. The old Takeshi would have drafted a retort. "I am not a janitor. I am..." But the new Takeshi said nothing. He didn't even hear the insult. The words were just sound waves, vibrations in the air. They carried no meaning, and therefore they carried no weight. Takeshi stepped into the center of the ring. The snow crunched softly under his feet. He didn't take a stance. This is important. In kendo and kenjutsu, the kamae stance is everything. It signals your intent. But Takeshi just stood there. His arms hung loose at his sides. His sword point rested near the snow. He looked completely exposed. Jiro frowned. This was wrong. Where was the rigid posture? Where was the fear? "Pick up your sword, genius," Jiro shouted, "or I'll break your ribs." Jiro adopted an aggressive high stance, Jodan no Kamae, the fire stance. It was an invitation to violence. It screamed, "I am going to crush you." Takeshi looked at Jiro. But he didn't see Jiro the rival. He didn't see a face. He saw geometry. He saw that Jiro's weight was 80% on his front foot. He saw the tension in Jiro's right shoulder. He saw the white knuckles gripping the hilt. Because Takeshi's default mode network was offline, there was no story about the fight. There was only the raw data of physics. And the physics told him exactly what was about to happen. Shoulder elevates. Breath holds. Muscles contract. Jiro screamed a deafening kiai meant to freeze the opponent's spirit and charged. He brought the heavy wooden sword down in a skull-crushing vertical arc. It was a blow that would have shattered a helmet. But Takeshi wasn't there. He didn't block. He didn't duck. He simply flowed. To the students watching, it looked like a magic trick. One moment, Jiro's sword was descending on Takeshi's head. The next moment, Takeshi was standing 2 feet to the left, and Jiro's sword was burying itself into the snow. Takeshi hadn't moved fast. He had moved soon, because he wasn't processing the fear. Oh no, he's attacking. He had reacted to the intent of the attack before the attack had fully formed. Jiro stumbled, wrenching his sword out of the frozen ground. He spun around, face red with embarrassment. "You got lucky," Jiro roared. "Stop running and fight." Jiro swung horizontally, a wild, angry haymaker aimed at Takeshi's ribs. Takeshi saw the broom. In his mind, the incoming sword wasn't a threat. It was just a maple leaf falling on the veranda. It was just a thing that needed to be swept aside. Takeshi stepped inside the arc. He didn't strike Jiro. He simply placed his bokken against Jiro's forearm and applied a gentle, guiding pressure. Leverage, momentum, gravity. Jiro's own force worked against him. The brute spun past Takeshi like a spinning top, losing his footing on the ice. He crashed face first into the snow. Silence fell over the courtyard. The students on the veranda had stopped shivering. They were leaning forward, eyes wide. They were witnessing something they didn't understand. Takeshi wasn't fighting, he was dancing. Jiro scrambled up. The humiliation was choking him now. He was the alpha dog, and he was being toyed with by the T-boy. "Die!" Jiro screamed. He abandoned all form. He rushed in, swinging wildly left, right, overhead a storm of wood and anger. And this is where Takeshi experienced the sensation that every elite athlete chases their entire life. Time slowed down. It wasn't a metaphor. The world actually seemed to decelerate. Takeshi could see the individual droplets of sweat flying off Jiro's forehead. He could see the vibration of the wooden sword as it cut the air. Because his processing speed was no longer bottled-necked by his ego, his brain was sampling reality at a frame rate Jiro couldn't comprehend. Step left, duck, pivot, slide. Takeshi weaved through the storm of strikes like water flowing around a rock. He was calm. He was bored. Almost. He is overextending, the silent observer in Takeshi's mind noted. His center of gravity is lost. Jiro lunged for a final, desperate stab. Takeshi didn't retreat. He stepped forward. He closed the distance instantly, invading Jiro's personal space. He brought the hilt of his sword up, catching Jiro's wrists mid-thrust. A sharp twist. Clack. Jiro's sword flew out of his hands, spinning into the air and landing 10 feet away in the snow. Jiro froze. Takeshi's wooden blade was resting gently against Jiro's throat. Takeshi wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't sweating. His pulse hadn't even risen. Jiro stared into Takeshi's eyes, searching for the smugness, the arrogance, the victory. But there was nothing. Takeshi's eyes were like the surface of a mountain lake, perfectly clear, reflecting everything, holding on to nothing. Jiro realized with a chilling certainty that if this had been a real battle, he would have been dead 3 times in the last 10 seconds, and Takeshi wouldn't have even blinked. Jiro stammered. "I yield." Takeshi lowered the sword. He bowed deeply. "Thank you for the lesson, Jiro-san." It wasn't sarcasm. Takeshi meant it. Jiro had provided the chaos necessary to test the order. Yamamoto-sensei stepped off the veranda. He walked over to where the 2 students stood. He looked at Jiro, who was rubbing his bruised wrists, and then at Takeshi. "Takeshi," the master said, 5 years ago, you came here wanting to be a great swordsman. You wanted to be a hero." "Yes, sensei." "Today, you did not act like a hero. You did not try to win. And because you did not try to win, you could not be defeated." The master reached out and took Takeshi's wooden sword. He inspected it. The young warrior thinks the sword is the weapon. He thinks his muscles are the engine. But today you learned the truth. The master tapped Takeshi on the chest, right over his heart. Presence is the weapon. The sword is just the delivery system. Takeshi felt a strange sensation in his chest. It wasn't pride. Pride feels hot and heavy. This felt light. It felt like space. "Does this mean I have passed, sensei?" Takeshi asked. "Am I a samurai now?" Yamamoto-sensei smiled, but there was a sadness in his eyes. "You have passed the first transformation. You have moved from student to warrior. You have learned to empty your mind in combat." The master turned and looked toward the gate of the dojo, toward the winding path that led higher into the mountains, disappearing into the gray mist. "But you are not a master yet. You have learned to be silent when you are holding a sword. You have learned to be present when death is in the room." The master looked back at him. "But can you be present when there is no enemy? Can you be present when there is no adrenaline? Can you be a samurai when you are just sitting?" Takeshi was confused. "I don't understand. I thought the fight was the hardest part." "No," the master said. "Fighting is easy. In a fight, the enemy is outside of you. You can see him. You can hit him. But for the second transformation, you must go where the sword cannot help you." "Where?" "To Mount Koya, to the Temple of Shadows. I am sending you away, Takeshi. You will live with the Zen monks. You will not train in martial arts. You will not touch a weapon. Takeshi felt a surge of panic. But I will lose my edge. I need to practice. You will practice, the master said, but you will not practice killing. You will practice dying. Dying? You have silenced the mind for a few minutes of combat. Now, you must silence it for a lifetime. You have defeated Jiro. Now, you must defeat Takeshi. The master bowed. The test was over. The journey had just begun. As Takeshi walked back to the barracks to pack his things, he looked at his hands. They were still steady. He had learned to be a ghost in the snow. He had learned to move without moving. But as he looked up at the towering peaks of Mount Koya, hidden in the storm clouds, he felt a different kind of fear. Fighting Jiro was physics. What waited for him on the mountain was metaphysics. And you can't hit metaphysics with a stick. Chapter 5. The Deep Training, the War of Stillness. Mount Koya is not a place you go to find yourself. It is a place you go to lose yourself. Located 800 meters above sea level, it is a fortress of silence surrounded by 8 mountain peaks that resemble the petals of a lotus flower. In 1616, it was the spiritual heart of Japan, a place where time seemed to freeze in the mist of the cedar forests. Takeshi climbed the stone steps, all 1,000 of them. He carried his swords on his back. They felt heavier than usual. He had defeated Jiro. He had mastered the physical realm. He felt strong, confident, perhaps even a little arrogant. He was a graduate of the dojo, arriving to show these monks what a real warrior looked like. He reached the massive wooden gates of the monastery. A monk was waiting for him. This was Master Ikkyu. He was 80 years old, bent like a gnarled pine tree, with eyes that looked like they had seen the beginning of the world. Takeshi bowed deeply. I am Takeshi, student of Yamamoto-sensei. I am here to complete my training. Master Ikkyu looked at him. Then he looked at the 2 swords strapped to Takeshi's back, the katana and the wakizashi. Leave those at the gate, the old monk rasped. Takeshi stiffened. Master, these are my soul. A samurai is never without his steel. Out there, Ikkyu pointed down the mountain, you are a samurai. In here you are just meat and bone. The steel will only get in the way. Leave them. Takeshi hesitated. To remove his swords was to remove his identity. It felt like stripping naked, but he remembered Yamamoto-sensei's orders. Trust the process. Slowly, painfully, Takeshi unbuckled his belt. He placed the beautiful weapons on a rack by the door. He felt a sudden, terrifying lightness. Without the weight on his hips, he felt unbalanced. Good, Ikkyu said, turning his back. Now follow me. We have much work to do. Takeshi smiled internally. Work. Good. He was ready for labor. He was ready to chop wood, carry water, build temples. He was ready to use his muscles. But Master Ikkyu didn't lead him to the woodpile. He led him to a dark, empty hall. There were no tools. There were no books. There were only rows of black cushions on the floor. Sit, Ikkyu commanded. Takeshi sat. Back straight, chin in, eyes half open, hands in the cosmic mudra. Takeshi adjusted his posture. And now, Master, what is the technique? What do I visualize? Nothing, Ikkyu said. Just sit, watch the wall, count your breaths, do not move. For how long? Until the bell rings. The monk left. Takeshi was alone in the silence. Easy, Takeshi thought. I can dodge a sword. I can certainly sit on a cushion. 10 minutes passed. It was peaceful. 20 minutes passed. His left foot fell asleep. 30 minutes passed. And then, the war began. If you have never practiced rigorous zazen, Zen meditation, you might think it is relaxing. You might picture a spa day. You are wrong. Zazen is a cage fight with your own nervous system. Takeshi's DMN, the default mode network he had successfully silenced during combat, came roaring back to life. And it was angry. This is stupid, his brain whispered. My knees are burning. Why are we doing this? I should be practicing sword swings. I'm losing my muscle mass. Is that a spider on the wall? My nose itches. I need to scratch it. Don't scratch it. Master said don't move, but it really itches. Just one scratch. No. Focus. The silence acted like an amplifier. Every suppressed thought, every insecurity, every memory Takeshi had buried under years of physical training came bubbling to the surface. He remembered the look of disappointment on his father's face 5 years ago. He worried about whether he would ever find a wife, He replayed the fight with Jiro, wondering if he could have done it better. His mind was a wild monkey, jumping from branch to branch, screaming for attention. Takeshi started to sweat, not from heat, but from the sheer effort of sitting still. His body screamed for dopamine. It craved the hit of action. Physical pain is easy for a warrior. A warrior can take a punch. A warrior can endure a march. But this was boredom. And to a high performer, boredom feels like death. Smack! A sharp pain exploded on Takeshi's right shoulder. He jumped, gasping. Master Ikkyu was standing behind him holding a kyosaku, a flat wooden stick used to wake up sleepy monks. "You moved," Ikkyu said. "My leg." "It was cramping," Takeshi stammered. "The cramp is in the leg. The suffering is in the mind," Ikkyu said. "You moved because you wanted to escape the sensation. You are a coward." Takeshi's blood boiled. "I am not a coward. I have faced steel." "You can face steel," the monk said calmly, "but you cannot face a tingling sensation in your knee. Which is the stronger enemy?" The monk walked away. Smack! He hit another student. Takeshi sat back down. His ego was bruised, but his curiosity was piqued. The old man was right. Why was he terrified of sitting still? Days turned into weeks. The routine was brutal. Wake up at 3 a.m. Sit for 2 hours. Eat rice gruel in silence. Work in the garden finally. Movement. Sit for 4 hours. Sleep for 5 hours. Repeat. This was the deep training. And it revealed the second great truth of the samurai, Fudoshin. Fudo means immovable. Shin means mind. Most people think immovable mind means being a stoic robot who feels no emotion. They think it means suppressing fear or anger. But on Mount Koya, Takeshi learned that suppression is just another form of fighting. And if you fight your emotions, you are not immovable, you are wrestling. One afternoon, during the 4th hour of sitting, Takeshi's knees felt like they were on fire. The pain was blinding. His mind was screaming, "Move! Stand up! Quitting is okay!" He was about to break. He was about to unfold his legs. But then, he remembered the broom. He remembered the tea. What if, he thought, I don't try to stop the pain? What if I just look at it? He shifted his attention. Instead of thinking, "This hurts, I hate this," he switched to raw data mode. Sensation, heat. Location, left knee. Intensity, 0.8. Texture, sharp. He zoomed in on the pain. He explored it. He didn't judge it as bad. He just accepted it as high-intensity sensation. And a miracle happened. The suffering vanished. The pain was still there, the nerve signals were still firing, but the resistance to the pain was gone. And without the resistance, the pain lost its power to control him. He sat through the fire. He didn't move. The bell rang. Takeshi opened his eyes. He felt a profound, vibrating stillness. It wasn't the flow state of combat, which is high energy and narrow. This was different. This was wide. This was deep. He felt like a mountain. Storms could rage, lightning could strike, snow could fall, but the mountain did not move. It just witnessed the weather. Master Ikkyu walked past him. He paused. He didn't hit him with the stick. "The mud is settling," the old monk whispered. "The water is becoming clear." This was the bridge between the warrior and the master. In the dojo, Takeshi had learned to react without thinking. On the mountain, he learned to feel without reacting. This is the superpower of the elite. Think about your own life. What causes you to lose control? It's usually an emotional spike. Your boss sends a rude email. Anger spike. You look at your bank account. Fear spike. You see an ex on Instagram. Jealousy spike. Your DMN screams, "Do something," reply, panic. Scroll, and you obey. You move, you lose your center. Fudoshin is the ability to feel that spike, to feel the anger boil in your stomach, to feel the fear tighten your chest and do absolutely nothing. You watch the emotion rise like a wave. You let it crest, you let it crash, and you remain sitting. You are not controlled by your chemistry. You are the observer of your chemistry. 6 months passed. Takeshi changed. He walked slower. He spoke less. The frantic, anxious energy of the young prodigy had burned away, leaving something harder and simpler underneath. He could sit for 6 hours without moving a muscle. He could watch a mosquito land on his arm and bite him without flinching. He thought he was finished. He thought he had mastered the mind. One evening, Master Ikkyu called him into his private chambers. "You sit well, Takeshi," the monk said, pouring tea. "You have found the silence inside the temple." "Thank you, Master. But the temple is easy," Ikkyu smiled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "The walls protect you. The bells guide you. There are no enemies here." Ikkyu reached into his robe and pulled out a crumpled letter. "True Fudoshin is not tested on a cushion. It is tested in the fire." He slid the letter across the table. "There is a village 3 days from here. They sent a runner this morning. They are being plagued by a group of Ronin masterless samurai who have turned to banditry." Takeshi felt a jolt of the old adrenaline. "You want me to fight them?" "I want you to resolve it," Ikkyu said carefully. "You will go alone. You will take your swords." Takeshi stood up. He felt the pull of the warrior identity returning. "But remember," Ikkyu raised a finger, "if you draw your sword, you have failed. If you kill them, you have failed. If you get angry, you have failed." "Then how do I stop them?" "Use the mountain," Ikkyu said, pointing at Takeshi's chest. "Take the silence of this room and carry it into the chaos." Takeshi bowed. He went to the gate. He strapped his katana back onto his hip. The weight felt different now. 6 months ago, the sword was a tool to prove his worth. Now, it felt like a heavy responsibility. He walked down the 1,000-stone steps. He was leaving the sanctuary. He was heading back into the world of noise, violence, and ego. He was about to face the final exam. And this time, the enemy wouldn't be a student with a wooden stick. It would be 5 killers who had forgotten their souls. Takeshi took a breath. He found the sitting mind while he was walking. He stepped into the mist. Chapter 6. The Mirror Effect. The Ultimate Victory. The village of Omori lay in the valley like a bruised fruit. It was 3 days' walk from the sanctuary of Mount Koya, but it felt like a different universe. Takeshi smelled the fear before he saw the houses. The air was thick with it, the scent of unwashed bodies, huddled children, and the acrid smoke of nervous fires. When he walked into the main square, the villagers didn't cheer. They peeked from behind shuttered windows. They saw a man in a worn kimono with 2 swords, but he didn't walk like a savior, he walked like a ghost. The village headman approached him, wringing his hands. "You are the one the monk sent?" The headman looked skeptical. "Just one?" "One is enough," Takeshi said. His voice was quiet, lacking the bravado of a mercenary. "There are 5 of them," the headman whispered, looking toward the dusty road at the edge of town. "They are led by Katsuro. He was a samurai once, like you. Now he is a demon. He killed our blacksmith just for looking at him wrong." "When do they come?" "Tomorrow at dawn, to collect the tribute." "Good," Takeshi said. "Go to your homes, lock the doors, do not come out until I say." That night, Takeshi sat in the center of the village square. It began to rain a cold, miserable drizzle. 5 years ago, Takeshi would have spent this night sharpening his blade. He would have been pacing, adrenaline pumping, rehearsing the kill. "I will slash the first one, spin, parry the second, kick the third." But tonight, Takeshi simply sat. He felt the mud seeping into his clothes. He felt the cold. He felt the fear of the villagers vibrating through the walls of the huts. He watched his own mind. The DMN tried to whisper to him. 5 men, steel armor. You could die tomorrow. You should run. Takeshi acknowledged the thought. "Hello, fear." Then he returned to his breath. He wasn't preparing to fight. He was preparing to be empty. He was polishing the mirror. Dawn broke gray and heavy. The sound of hooves thundered in the distance. They rode in like a storm. 5 men on horseback, armored in mismatched plates of leather and iron. They laughed loud, ugly laughs. They smelled of sake and violence. At the front rode Katsuro. The headman was right, he looked like a demon. He wore a horned helmet, and his face was a map of scars. His eyes were yellowed and bloodshot, filled with a bottomless, hungry rage. The bandits reined in their horses in the center of the square. They expected cowering farmers. They expected weeping women. Instead, they saw one man, sitting on a wooden stool, drinking a cup of tea. Takeshi didn't look up. He took a sip. Katsuro laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Look at this. The village hired a scarecrow." The bandits jeered. One of them, a young man with a spear, rode closer. "Hey, are you deaf? Get on your knees." Takeshi set the cup down. He stood up. He didn't draw his sword. He didn't take a stance. He just stood there, arms loose, face blank. "I am Takeshi. I ask you to leave this place in peace." The bandits fell silent for a second, stunned by the audacity. Then they roared with laughter. "He asks us," Katsuro sneered. "He asks the wolf to leave the sheep." Katsuro dismounted. He was huge, towering over Takeshi. He drew his katana. The blade was chipped and stained a butcher's tool. "Draw your sword, boy," Katsuro growled. "Let's see if you bleed as red as the blacksmith." This is the moment. This is the climax. In a normal action movie, this is where the music swells. The hero draws his weapon. The steel clashes. But this is not a movie. This is the psychology of high-level conflict. Takeshi looked at Katsuro. But he didn't look at his sword. He looked through him. Takeshi had entered the state of Mushin so deeply that his ego had completely dissolved. He was no longer Takeshi the warrior. He was just a void. A space. And when you stand in front of a void, you don't see the void. You see yourself. The mirror effect. Katsuro stepped forward, raising his sword to strike. He wanted a reaction. He needed Takeshi to flinch. He needed Takeshi to be afraid. Fear is a transaction. I sell you a threat. You buy it with terror. If you don't buy it, the transaction fails. Takeshi didn't buy it. He stood perfectly still. His eyes were soft, almost sad. He looked at Katsuro with the same expression a mother uses when a child throws a tantrum. Katsuro hesitated. His sword hovered in the air. Why wasn't he moving? Why wasn't he shaking? A ripple of unease went through the bandit leader. When you try to intimidate someone and they don't react, your brain panics. It thinks, he knows something I don't. Is it a trap? Is he a demon? Is he crazy? I said draw, Katsuro screamed, his voice cracking slightly. There is no need, Takeshi said softly. I will kill you. You can kill this body, Takeshi said, his voice calm and resonant, carrying across the silent square. But you cannot kill the silence. You are not fighting me, Katsuro. You are fighting the noise in your own head. Katsuro blinked. The name. How did he know the name? You are tired, Takeshi continued. He wasn't speaking as a warrior now. He was speaking as the monk. I see it in your eyes. You run from village to village, taking rice you don't need, killing men you don't hate, trying to fill a hole that cannot be filled with blood. The other bandits shifted on their horses. The atmosphere had shifted. The air wasn't thick with violence anymore. It was thick with truth. Shut up. The young bandit with the spear jumped down. He was reckless, eager to prove himself. I'll shut his mouth. He charged. He thrust the spear straight at Takeshi's chest. Takeshi didn't move his feet. He didn't draw his sword. At the very last fraction of a second, when the spear tip was inches from his heart, Takeshi simply turned his hips. Minimal movement, maximum efficiency. The spear passed harmlessly through the fabric of his kimono. Takeshi reached out and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. It wasn't a strike. It was a touch. He looked the boy in the eye. The boy froze. He had expected resistance. He had expected to hit something hard. Instead, he had hit water. He was off balance, terrified by the sudden intimacy of the contact. Go home, Takeshi whispered. You are not a killer yet. Don't become one. The boy stumbled back, dropping his spear. He looked at his hands, shaking. The violence had been drained out of him instantly. Katsuro watched this. He looked at his own sword. It felt heavy. Suddenly, it felt incredibly heavy. He looked at Takeshi again, and in the stillness of Takeshi's face, Katsuro saw his own reflection. He saw a monster. He saw a man who had lost his honor, his lord, and his soul. He saw the ugliness of his own anger reflected in the pristine surface of Takeshi's peace. The mirror effect is terrifying because it forces you to confront the one person you have been running from, yourself. Katsuro's lip trembled. The rage drained away, leaving only exhaustion. A lifetime of running, of fighting, of screaming. It all crashed down on him. Who are you? Katsuro whispered. I am nobody, Takeshi said. I am just a mirror. Katsuro lowered his sword. Then, his hand opened. Clang. The katana hit the mud. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent square. Katsuro fell to his knees. He didn't bow to Takeshi. He bowed to the truth that Takeshi represented. He put his forehead in the dirt and began to weep. Great, heaving sobs that shook his armored shoulders. The other bandits looked at their leader, the man they feared, the man they thought was invincible, broken by a man who hadn't even made a fist. The spell was broken. The hierarchy of violence dissolved. Without a word, the other bandits turned their horses. They didn't attack. They didn't shout. They simply rode away, dissolving into the mist, leaving their leader and their weapons behind. Takeshi stood over the weeping man. He didn't gloat. He didn't lecture. He knelt down in the mud, ruining his kimono. He placed a hand on Katsuro's shoulder. "The war is over," Takeshi said. "Rest now." The villagers slowly opened their doors. They stepped out, blinking in the morning light. They expected to see a corpse. They expected to see blood. Instead, they saw two men kneeling in the mud, one crying, one sitting in silence. There were no cheers, no victory parade, just a profound, heavy quiet. Takeshi had won the ultimate victory. As Sun Tzu wrote 2,000 years ago, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. He hadn't defeated the bandits. He had transcended the need for the battle. Later that afternoon, Takeshi stood at the edge of the village. Katsuro had been taken in by the local temple. He would trade his sword for a hoe. He would never fight again. Takeshi looked back at Mount Koya. He touched the hilt of his sword. He hadn't drawn it. He finally understood what Yamamoto-sensei meant. The sword is a tool for cutting enemies, but presence is a tool for cutting the ego. And when you cut the ego, there are no enemies left. Takeshi turned and began the long walk back to the dojo. He was no longer a student. He was no longer just a warrior. He was a master, and he had a floor to sweep. Chapter 7. The Master's Legacy. The circle completes. 10 years later. The Haida Mountains look exactly the same. The pine trees haven't aged. The rain still falls. But inside the dojo, the face has changed. Yamamoto-sensei has long since retired to a hermitage in the hills. The man sitting at the head of the room now is Takeshi. He is 30 years old. He moves with a quiet, liquid grace. When he walks, he makes no sound. When he speaks, people listen, not because he is loud, but because he is present. The sliding door opens. A new student enters. He is 17. He is breathless, eager, and vibrating with anxiety. He has expensive swords and a head full of theories. "Master Takeshi," the boy bows, trembling with ambition. "I have come to learn the secret technique. I want to become the greatest swordsman in Japan." Takeshi looks at the boy. He sees the tightness in the shoulders. He sees the frantic eyes analyzing the room. He sees the fear disguised as arrogance. He sees himself. Takeshi smiles. It is a genuine, warm smile. "Welcome," Takeshi says. "We will make you a great swordsman, but first..." Takeshi reaches behind him. He picks up an old, worn bamboo broom. "First, you must learn to sweep." The boy looks disappointed. "Sweep? But I came to fight." "To fight is easy," Takeshi says, standing up and placing the broom in the boy's hands. "To be here, that is the war of a lifetime." The boy looks at the broom, then at the master. He takes it. "When you sweep," Takeshi whispers, "just sweep. Be completely with the dust. Be completely with the wood. If you can master the broom, the sword will master itself." The boy begins to sweep. Swish, swish. Takeshi watches him. The cycle begins again. The student becomes the master becomes the student. The knowledge is passed down, not through words, but through the silence between them. And this brings us back to you. You are not a samurai living in feudal Japan. You do not carry a katana. You do not have to fight bandits in the mud. But you are fighting. Every day, you wake up to a battlefield. Your enemies are distraction, anxiety, procrastination, and fear. Your bandits are the notifications on your phone, the emails piling up, the regret of the past, and the worry of the future. You are trying to cut the rain. You are exhausting yourself trying to control the storm. Takeshi's journey teaches us that the way out is not to fight harder. It is to stop fighting and start being. To deactivate the time traveler in your brain. To find the Fudoshin, the immovable mind in the middle of traffic, in the middle of an argument, in the middle of chaos. The forbidden technique isn't magic. It is simply the choice to be here, right now, completely. If you are ready to stop running from the silence, if you are ready to put down the heavy burden of your ego and pick up the broom, then welcome to the dojo. This channel is dedicated to the ancient strategies of the mind. We dissect the wisdom of the past to help you conquer the battles of the present. Click that subscribe button, not to support me, but to make a commitment to yourself. Join us, walk the path, master the mind. And remember, when you close this video, don't just move on to the next distraction. Take a breath, look around you. Be here. Class dismissed.